Before we begin, can we just take a moment of silence to mourn the loss of my Dallas Cowboys yesterday? CD, we love you, bruh, but you got to catch them balls, man. You got to catch them balls. All right, now that that's over with, hey, Seminary Kobe here, and welcome to week 4, one of those weeks. I don't know, week 3 or week 4 of my journey to a theological PhD. Um, this week was kind of uneventful. I think we're really just getting into the swing of the lectures, and we're kind of. I mean, we already know pretty much what's to be expected. One good thing that did come from this week, well, actually, a lot of good things came from this week, but one thing that I experienced for the first time, I guess I can say, is a student led the lecture for one of the classes, and that's the purpose of a PhD program, right? To not only get a comprehensive understanding of the field in which you hope to teach or research in, but to also to facilitate conversations and how to run a class, how to run a discussion, how to teach teachers. So they have, and that's what's going to happen throughout the course of the semester. Students are going to be leading various seminars, and a student led our Luther seminar this past week, and it was interesting. It was good being able to see what it is that I'm going to have to potentially do. Well, not potentially, I am. What I'm going to have to do in a couple of weeks. I think my presentation date is on week 10, and I'm actually hoping, since I don't live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I'm hoping that I will be able to go up there so I can facilitate the seminar in person. We'll see. I'll ask my work if I can do that. I'm sure they'll be okay with it, but it's 7 hours away, so it's kind of far. But let me kind of show you something that I did, or I was able to learn a study habit. That's what I say. Every week I'm developing new study habits and more efficient ways of, number one, getting all this reading done, because it's a crazy amount, but also retaining what it is that I'm reading, taking better notes, things of that nature. And I'm just trying to not only share it with you that maybe it might help, but so that I remember it as well, because I don't want to just do all this and forget it. So let me see. Where's the share screen? Where's the share screen setting? I'm doing this every week and I still forget. So let's share the entire screen. Okay, so as you know, we're reading Luther, Man Between God and the Devil, and a student was facilitating this. I'm not going to show his presentation notes or his paper or anything like that, but I'm just going to kind of talk about how it went. So the professor, Dr. Bingham, was more than gracious with him. He knew that I think it was his first time facilitating a conversation at that level. So he gave him a lot of grace, and he aided a lot of the way through, which is what I'm hoping he'll do with me as well, because I've never really done this before, other than the level that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. So this is what I was able to do. This is what I was able to learn this week that was super beneficial and super helpful. This is the book we are reading, right? Luther, Man Between God and the Devil. We don't have to worry about the notes right now. Matter of fact, I'll just make this big screen because we don't need to worry about the notes right now. So I'm reading this book, and this is what I did this week. This book was really it's like 360 pages. The last 40 is like notes. But I wanted to show you what I was doing. So this is, we'll just start here at the prologue. I have a Read Era app on my phone, and I actually bought the Pro or whatever. Like I had the free for a very long time. Then I upgraded to the Pro because it was able to read to me at a faster pace. At the free level, it only reads at like, I don't know, 1.5 speed. When I watch videos, I was telling my son, he always asked me, he was like, Dad, why do you listen to everything so fast? It's like, I need to get this information and go, right? I don't have time. I told him, I was like, unless it's a comedian or music, something that requires the timing, I'm just going through it. Especially so like with books and lectures and not sermons, but books, lectures, talks, things of that nature. I'm listening to it at double speed. Same thing with my audiobooks. I listen to them really fast. Now, the free version of this Read Era only went up to 1.5 speed. So I was like, I need to get through quicker than this. So I went up to my wife and I begged her. I was like, hey, please, can I have $15 so I can get the pro version of this app so I can speed up the reading? And man, did it help. So just to show you, I have the Read Era app on my phone, and it's the same thing that I see here. And this is what I was able to do. I sped it up. I got the comfortable speed. I tried 2.5. It was still kind of slow. I went to 3.0. It was a little fast. 2.7 was that happy medium where I could follow along and I wouldn't lose my place, and I could still pause it and take the notes as I needed to. But this is what I did. Let me see if I can turn this up, and you can see, and you can follow along with me. Prologue. Controversy beyond the grave. The charioteer of Israel has fallen. Ever and Father, will you die steadfast in Christ enough? F. 7 doctrines you have preached. Yes, replied the clear BW 4 meters. Voice for the last time. On February 18, 1546, even. Why? As he lay dying in Ireland, far from home, Martin. Slash dot. Luther was not to be spared a final public test, not to be granted privacy even in this last, most personal hour. His longtime confidant Justice Jonas, now pastor in Halle, having heard not really summoned witnesses to the bedside, should the dying man by the arm to rouse his spirit for the final exertion. Luther had always prayed for a peaceful hour, resisting Satan, the ultimate, bitterest enemy, through that trust in the Lord over life and death, which is God's gift of liberation from the tyranny of sin. It transformed agony into no more than a brief blow. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I just kind of wanted to show you how it does. And it sounded a little sketchy in the beginning because of this big letter here. But once that's out of the way and it can just flow through, it made it super quick. And it allowed me to keep the pace of the reading. Because, you know, when you're reading on your own, you have ebbs and flows of when you're really focused and when you time turns, reading stops when you turn away and things of that nature. But when I have this reading to me, it keeps the pace constantly. I can look away, do what I got to do, come back while listening, and still continue following along. So it was the best thing I could have done. And it helped me get through this book. I'm not going to say quick because it still took all day. I mean, 360 pages, taking notes at the level that I wanted to. Let me see if I can open it up to show you my notes. I have a new way of taking notes. If I'm just trying to how do you say it? I'm just trying to get better every time. Luther between man and God. Make it more concise, make it more memorable, all those things, right? I'm just trying to get it to where I can retain the most information and do everything I got to do. So first thing I do, and I think I mentioned this last time, is I do basically my table of contents for how I'm going to keep notes, right? So if you go to the beginning of the book here, that's going to go really slow, go all the way back. Preface, these are pictures. They have a lot of pictures in this book, and I thought it was very, very cool to be able to see them. Okay, so here's the table of contents. All right, so if you notice, I have part 1, the longed for Reformation, and then I go into the prologue, and then the chapters, I have it all separated. So when I go to chapter 1, and you can see how I start changing my notes a little bit. I have the same type of notes that I did the first 2 weeks. So yeah, I guess this would be week 3. The first 2 weeks of still kind of taking these bullet point notes of things that I read, and I'm trying to synthesize, making my own words so I can remember. And that's what I'm doing, right? Everything I see, if it has to do with each other, I'll add a little sub note or sub bullet. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm trying, but it's still not sitting right. This is not exactly what I want, right? If the professor or the class were to mention, you know, what was the state of the nation in chapter 1, I could be like, search state of the nation, and then here, and they'll say Luther's survival on this, and, you know, Cardinal Cajetan, and I'll mention a quote, but I don't really know it. I just have bullet points. I don't really know it. So what I started to do by chapter 2, and it goes along better with how it's listed here with Reformation and Owen Insight and the struggle for monastic reform, you can start to see my notes change. I go from chapter 1 all the way down. It's not working. Little by little, I'm like, maybe I should just start giving little summaries for each one of these sections as opposed to bullet, bullet, bullet. And so at the Spanish factor about right here, I start changing it up. I was like, I like this better. World monarchy and Reformation, I like this better, and I still add little things in there that I maybe I'll be able to talk about or I want to learn about, things of that nature. The Luther issue in Worms, another one. So at this point, I'm like, I like this. But again, this is how I set it up. Chapter 2, a medieval event, and then each main bullet is the subsection, and then after I read it, give a little summary of that section, maybe 1 or 2. After a while, I even stopped doing this. As you see, they're all just summaries. And then towards the very end, after I've summarized every single section, I'll summarize the whole thing, so I know what that whole chapter was about. After I do that, I did the same thing with chapter 3, and then do my summary of each section, summarize the whole chapter, and then I'll go back and I'll summarize the entirety of part 1. So I had this all down. all the way through part one, part two, part three, all the chapters. And then these were the questions that were asked in the seminar. And it kind of wasn't that. You can tell that the student had a plan for facilitating the conversation, but as is with most things, it kind of not went off the rails, but kind of deviated from his initial plan. So I think this was actually the only real question from his questions to ask that was asked. Everything else just kind of flowed like a conversation. While we went through the same information, as I could tell because I had the questions, it was just a little bit different. And I liked it. I thought it was very cool. So combined with the new note taking and the speed reading of the app that helps me to follow along, I was able to get through it so much better. And it allowed me to retain more information, and I didn't have to burden myself so much with all these notes. As we're going through our seminars as well, I learned two things. One, I learned what kind of questions are being asked of the professor, what the students like to talk about. And when we reference back to the book and he wants to know what information we've learned, you can tell, I'm kind of understanding what he's going to ask. So that's what I'm preparing for now. Whenever I'm reading, I'm like, that looks like something that we're going to get into, and I'll make special note of that. But at the same time, like I said, Dr. Bingham is still going to talk, and he's still going to give us notes. So these are my actual seminar notes. And it's just awesome to be in these spaces, learning in this way. I'm really enjoying it. And it takes on. So let me say it like this. While I did say this is like my journey to a PhD, me getting a PhD isn't the only thing going on in my life. If it's truly a chronicling of my journey, I have to include everything else that's going on in my life, which is why I opened up this with the Cowboys loss. I mean, they just played last night, and football season is starting up, and that's part of my life. It's like the only other thing I do aside from church and studying and family time. That's like the only hobby that I have that's for me is watching football. So that's part of my journey as well, right? That's part of my journey as well. And CD, man, you gotta catch some balls. Anyways, why I say the study is a little, it's more than just getting a PhD to me. It feeds into other areas of my life, one of which is church, right? Because that's the whole purpose of this. It's not just to store up knowledge for myself, it's to teach this information. And while I do want to teach at the academic level, I'm already in a position to eventually get there. So I'm not worried about that too much. I just need the credentials first, so I know that I did what I have to do to be just like my peers who I work with who are teaching classes. They're all credentialed as well. They're all PhDs, and I believe that's the standard to teach classes. So I want to get my PhD before I even ask again if I can start teaching some classes. I think it's the right thing to do. They gave me a test. They let me teach a class, and I thought it was great. That's how I know I want to do it. But I respect the position. So I want to have the credentials just like them. I don't, just because I work at a seminary, I don't want it to just be given to me. I want to earn it, you know what I mean? But it's more than that. I also want to teach at the church, and I haven't talked about it yet, even though I said I would, or I wanted to. Let me stop sharing this for a minute. Even though I said I wanted to, I'll take this opportunity to present it now. So not only am I working at a seminary as a registrar, I'm also heavily involved in my church, more so now than I think I've ever have been, other than when I was in a paid position working at another church. I'm not getting paid at the church I'm in now. I'm just trying to volunteer and do as much as I can for the congregation. And because of my willingness to help, and also my position in not position in life, that sounds weird, but what I'm doing outside of life, right? I'm getting a PhD outside of church life. I'm getting a PhD in theology. So they utilize the skills you have to help within the congregation. They know this is what I want to do, so they're aiding me in that process. Because of what I'm doing, they put me in a position to be I don't know if it really has a label. I don't really care about labels, but I just care about the work. And the work that I'm doing is I'm sort of in charge of the Christian education within the church. Now, one of my foundational one of my core beliefs is that I feel there is a lack of, what's the word? There's just a lack of proper biblical understanding or biblical literacy within the church. Not to say people can't read, that's not what I'm saying. But I think as a whole, holistically, all the churches, at least in the Protestant spectrum, specifically Baptist, um, they're lacking in the biblical studies department, right? I mean, we go to Sunday school and we hear the sermons on Sundays, but there's not really a curriculum developed that causes an individual to grow in biblical literacy. Like my Catholic friends, they have a catechism, right? My EO friends, they have sort of the same thing where like the first year or so they're learning about the things they need to know in the faith. And as Protestants, we don't really have that. There are some churches that enact that, but it's often enacted by a pastor who is also not credentialed. So they're just learning what they've learned from their pastor who was probably not credentialed. There's just a severe lack across the board. So what I wanted to do, and one of my main goals, is to take the education that I'm learning at sort of the basic or certificate level at my seminary that I learned, and give that to the church in not such a college fashion. You know what I mean? Like I still want it to be more of a church setting. So I'm not going to give like assignments or anything like that, but I do want them to learn the information. So I put together, I have it on the side, but I put together an 8-week curriculum for new believers, not like new believers they're barely coming into the faith, but those that are that have been Baptist or have been coming to the church for a little bit, but we want to get them knowing more, right? So I put together an 8-week curriculum that studies just how we got the Bible, why we're Baptists, who is God, who are we to God, things of that nature, right? And that's just tier one. I developed a 3-tier system, and eventually we will get to the point of learning all the things that I learned, maybe all the way up to the bachelor level. Not as in depth or as rigorous when it comes to the work, but the knowledge will be there. So like for the second level, for example, I want to be able to get into methods of biblical interpretation and New Testament surveys, and maybe eventually do actual higher book by book studies within Scripture. Why do I mention all this? Because like I said, it's part of my journey. It goes in tandem with getting a PhD, working at a seminary. Like I'm also taking this very, very seriously. So serious, in fact, that this was a different one. They also asked me, you know how it is if you work at a church. There's like a double handful of people who do all the jobs in the church. And every time there's a new ministry or something that's being presented, they'll ask everybody, but it's typically the same double handful of people that volunteer for these jobs. And my wife got asked if she would lead the Wednesday night studies for the first through third grade. I believe it is first through third. And she has a whole curriculum of the things that she's working through that was given to her. So she has like a structured outline. So she's like, fine, yeah, sure, I'll facilitate that. That's what she does, right? Well, they needed someone to do the same thing, but for the youth. Not like a youth pastor, but I guess it's sort of doing the same thing as a youth pastor, but it's just like a youth teacher, I guess you could say. And that's what I'm doing on Wednesdays. And I'm going to be honest with you. Whenever they asked me, I was like, what do I know about helping the youth? You know what I mean? Like the only youth I know is my son. I don't really talk to youth like that, but I want to help in any way that I can. So when the church asked me if I would do this, I said, of course, for sure. And the first day, the first time I met with the youth, it was sort of just like an icebreaker day. I wanted to get to know them. I wanted them to get to know me. Sure, we saw each other in church, but I don't really talk to them because they're kids. You know what I mean? Like I barely talk. I don't want to say I really love talking to everybody in church, and my wife says maybe I talk too much sometimes, but again, they're kids, like we didn't really have a whole lot to naturally talk about. But now we do. Now we're in the same room, and so I want to get to know who they are. What's your name? What's your interest? One of the main things I asked them is, what's something that you have always wanted to or hoped to learn about the Bible, right? Just trying to gauge where they're at, what they're interested in. I helped with a youth group years ago. And I found it interesting that one of the things they were really into at the time were dinosaurs, and where were dinosaurs in the Bible, and they were talking about Leviathan and things of that nature. And um, I didn't want to tell them about Job and wisdom literature and how Leviathan probably, should I say? Yeah, well, I mean, whatever. How Leviathan probably isn't exactly as we think. It's not one of those Jurassic Park type dinosaurs. It's almost it's a figure that's not meant to be taken literally. Anyways, that's why I wanted to ask him this time. What are you guys into? What do y'all want to learn about? And one thing that a majority of them said was, we want to know how we know we're hearing from God. And I was like, man, that's great. That's what I want to talk about too. That would be a great first lesson to have. So a week goes by. This is about 2 weeks ago now. Today's Friday. This past Wednesday was my third time with the youth. First, second, third, elementary nerd. Yeah, I think it was the third time with the youth. So week 2 is when we talked about discerning the voice of God. And this is something I had to deal with myself. Maybe a couple of years back, I was having trouble understanding if I'm actually hearing from God. I didn't know if I should be hearing him audibly. I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know. So I asked a bunch of my coworkers, and this is what I'm telling the youth as well. This is the next week. I tell them, I'm like, look, I know y'all had this question on whether or not y'all are actually hearing from God, how you can hear from God. This is my experience, and this is what I hope you'll get out of this. And the main thing I hope they got out of this was that there was various ways to hear God, that he will meet you where you're at and speak to you in that way. And I was like, here are some examples. I asked a number of people that I work with, how do you hear from God? And one of my friends, he's very outspoken. He said, man, Covey, I hear from God just like I'm hearing from you right now. We talk all the time, talk all the time. Sometimes I get mad at him. If it's a real bad day, I'll cuss him out. And God will get mad at me. And it's just like a conversation with a friend, he says. That's how he speaks to God. I've never heard God like that. So I was like, well, that one's not for me. Another girl who used to work there, she says that she heard from God, or she hears from God when she does her morning journaling. There's little things that let her know while she's journaling that God is speaking to her. And I was like, wow, I would like to try that as well. So before she left, she actually gave me a journal and was like, here, Covey, you try it. Now I tried journaling, and same thing. I didn't hear from God that way. I asked someone else, and they said that they hear from God when they are actively praying. And I don't mean actively praying as in, actually in prayer. She said that she would go take walks, and as she's out being active, she would pray. And while she's doing that, things that are going on around would they would show her that God is speaking. That's how she heard from God. And there was all these different ways, right? There's all these different ways. And again, up until this point, I still didn't know how I was hearing from God. But then I thought back on a story, and this is one time I knew for sure that God was speaking to me, and it has happened consistently since. And again, this is what I share with this is what I'm sharing with the youth group, and I'll show you how it's still happening even today. Well, not today, but like yesterday or the day before it happened. There was a time in my academic career, this was towards the end of my MDiv, when I also started getting my master's in Jewish studies, where I started to notice a lot of things in the Bible, just like most academics who get to this level. They started to notice things. I started to notice things in the Bible that was making me starting to question a lot of things. As fundamental Protestants, we believe in the inspiration and inerrancy of Scripture, right? So inerrancy, for those that don't know, inerrancy means that the Bible that we have is completely without error. Everything in there is factually correct, and it can be taken to mean different degrees. Some people think just the original autographs were inerrant, which is for me a weird stance to take, because no one's ever seen the autograph, so it becomes a faith thing. Others say even our very translations are inerrant. There's nothing wrong with them. Some say the manuscripts are inerrant, and all these, once you get to this level of academics, you can do basic textual criticism and see that, wait a minute, what do you mean exactly by inerrant? Because all these manuscripts differ, right? But that's not the point. That's not the point. I think our view of inerrancy is a little weird. It's a little weird. But regardless, I'm learning all this stuff, and it's starting to make me question things. And it's and I at this time I thought I had a community that I can talk to about this stuff, right? So whenever I brought out some of these things to the community that I was a part of, man, they made me feel so bad for even asking these questions. One of the biggest ones I had was whenever I was getting my master's in Jewish studies, we started learning about, I wonder if I told this story. I feel like I have. Maybe it's because I told other people, but we started talking about Rabbi Akiva, right? And we were talking about all the things that is written down about what Rabbi Akiva said. And the professor, towards the end of it, they were like, we don't even know if Rabbi Akiva lived, but scholars at this level really don't concern themselves with the historicity of some of these figures because that's boring. You're never going to figure it out either way. So let's just believe whatever you want to believe. But we do know we have these words that are attributed to them. So instead of going down this endless hole of whether this person existed or not, let's deal with the text that we do have and consider it attributed to this person that is traditionally said it's attributed to. So all the words of Rabbi Akiva, we're reading and we're going through it and we're saying it's from Rabbi Akiva, but we don't know if Akiva even existed. At the end of class, I stay behind and I'm like, Professor, I have a question. I have a question because this is one of the things I was dealing with at the time while I was kind of getting backlash from my community. I was like, I know you said this with Rabbi Akiva that, determining the historicity of some of these figures is, it's kind of boring in scholarship as there's no way to really definitively tell. I was like, but how can you do that? How can you go to temple on Sabbath and pray to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob may have not even been real, like real historical figures? And the professor tells me, he's like, Kobe, I have friends that are rabbis. I have friends that are professors. Me, for example, not me, but him. He's saying me, for example, we can all when we're in class, we can question these things. Again, no one really likes to get into it because you can't prove it either way. But we can separate the fact of them possibly not even being historical to still reading the writings that are attributed to them. This is what we do as academics. This is what we do. It doesn't really matter if they were historical or not. But when it comes to our faith, we're still going to go into temple on Saturday and pray to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob because our faith says they are real figures. Just like when we believe that the original autographs that no one has ever seen are inerrant, completely without error, and totally inspired by God. No one's ever seen them, and academically, we may not be able to prove it, but when it comes to faith, I have faith in that. So now I can see that my faith says I believe in Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and my faith believes that those autographs are completely inerrant and inspired and are from God, written under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. And it's helped me. It's helped me. Why I bring that up is because I brought all this to my community. And this is before I worked it out. This is before I worked it out to where I can believe and separate. Belief and academic are two different things. I can compartmentalize. Before I got there, I had to figure that out on my own. And it was a tough process. But before I figured it out, I brought this to my community, and man, did they let me have it. It was one of the worst times in my faith life, if that makes sense. Like I said, I really depended on this community, and I was, it was like a family almost. Imagine a family telling you that, well, since you don't believe as we believe anymore, we're going to kind of almost kick you out of the family. You're at least shunned for a while. How all this relates back to speaking with God is, since I was really hurting at this time, I went to this conference with some of my coworkers. And on the way up there, I was telling a friend of mine, I was like, this is what happened with the community, and I'm feeling really bad about it. And I just have questions. I believe Abraham exists. I just have questions. You know what I mean? And everybody that I spoke with at the academic level all said the same things. Most of my community are not academics, right? But everybody at the academic level was like, oh, he's all right. That's not even that big of a deal. Is he real? I don't know. But I'm going to pray to him, or I'm going to pray as he is. I'm going to talk about him as he is. And I was like, yeah, no, I know. I just, man, I wish God could calm me down, help me out. You know what I mean? I was really going through it. So what happened was we were at this conference, and I've never been one to say that whenever a pastor is delivering a sermon, I'd be like, man, oh man, pastor wrote that message specifically for me. I felt that word. It's never happened to me before. But in this particular occasion, there was a number of different speakers speaking on a number of different things. And this one speaker, as I'm there listening to him, he starts going in on those who will condemn you for your different belief. And the way that he said it was almost, I'm not even gonna say almost, it was verbatim what I was telling my friend hours before on what I was hurting about inside. This speaker was saying verbatim. He was like, don't worry about the people that say this about you. Don't worry about this, and don't worry about this. It was so exact and verbatim that I could do nothing but look over at my friend who I was talking, my coworker who I was talking about this earlier with. He looks over at me as well, and he was like, see, told you, told you. And that moment I felt, I was like, God is speaking to me through this person. So much so that after he delivered that message, I went up to him and I was like, man, thank you so much for your words. I really felt that God was speaking through you and delivered a message that I really needed to hear. And it was at that point that I realized that the way God speaks to me is through a lot of my academic studies. This is where I live. This is my world, is academic studies all the time. Why would God not speak to me through this? So this is what I told my youth, right? And the point of the message was, I was telling him, I was like, so God may not speak to you audibly. God may not speak to you while you're journaling. God may not speak to you while you're taking walks. God may not even speak to you while you're doing academic work. But whatever you do, just do it and think about God while you're doing it, and he will meet you where you're at. And who knows, that may be how God speaks to you. He will meet you where you're at. Just try a bunch of different things. You're going to hear from him. He wants to talk to you. He doesn't want to be hidden from you. And so it was a good first youth group. And the second one was awesome too. I'm now at a point where I was like, man, I want to go on Wednesdays and hang out with them. Like, they were a lot of fun. It got even better this last Wednesday. And I don't know, maybe I'll talk about that some other time, but it's a lot of fun. And I'm glad I said yes to this opportunity. It's great. But God spoke to me again. God spoke to me again. And this happened. So whenever it comes to class, I am usually at work. For my first seminar on Tuesdays, it's from 2:30 to 4:30, so I'm at work. My second seminar is from 8:30 to 10:30, and I'm usually at work. But yesterday I wasn't able. I had to go take care of something. So when I went to seminar, I actually had to turn on my hotspot on my phone and take my wife's laptop, and I was in seminar on the laptop in my car listening to this. And it's kind of a good thing that I did, because I was able to, I'm never able to do this because when I'm at work, I wear my headphones. And I actually tried to record the lecture one time so I can go back and listen, but it doesn't work out. But since I was doing this from my car, I could play my laptop as loud as possible and use my phone, and I can actually record certain things. And there was something that I recorded that I know God was speaking to me through because of how exact it was. Again, with this same community, I don't know why I'm still messing with this community, but with the same community, we were speaking about the complexity and the simplicity of the gospel message. I'm telling them a lot of things that I'm learning in my seminars, and like I said, not many, nobody really is at. I think I heard him say that maybe one or two are getting a PhD, but I don't know that any of them are in theology. I know a couple have degrees in theology, but maybe some have like a master's. But if you know about academics, like, you can get a master's in theology when your bachelor's is in like underwater basket weaving. They don't have to go together. It's very rare that you have the same type of degrees all the way through. For example, my wife, she has a bachelor's in childhood education, a master's in early childhood education, and then a doctorate in educational leadership. So they all kind of flow. Me, I mean, y'all know my stuff. I got a bachelor's in ministry, a master's of arts in ministry, a master's of divinity. I'm getting my master's of Jewish studies, and then a PhD in historical theology. So it all flows. It doesn't work that way with everybody. Some people they'll get like I said, like a bachelor's in engineering, and then they'll also get a master's of art in theology or something. So it's different whenever you count up all the credits. Anyways, I say all that to say this. not everybody is at the same level, right? We spoke about this, I think maybe my first time on here, and how I went to RDS orientation, and they said you're not the same as you were. My wife told me that it reminded me of the Chosen, how they said you came to me one way and you left another, and what happened in between was him. It's like a big thing of the Chosen. If you haven't watched the Chosen, watch the Chosen. I actually told that to my youth group. Shout out the Chosen. They're awesome show. Anyways, we're not the same, right? So we're not the same. And I'm noticing this, and I'm noticing that these constant bickerings and back and forth is futile. And something specifically happened where we were talking about, we want to take a complex message. No, we want to take a simple message and complicate it into something bigger than what it has to be. But whenever we complicate it, sometimes we don't fully understand what it is we're really discussing. And because we can feel sort of overloaded with information, we get a little bit defensive and we want to bring it back to the simplicity. You can't really have it both ways, right? And I found it interesting because one of the things that we were talking about in the Luther seminar, in the Trinity seminar, was Gregory of Niansis, I think is how you say his name. Let me share my screen. That was one of the readings. Window, I'll just share the entire screen. We're talking about Gregory of Niansis. I think that's how you say his name. I could be saying it totally wrong. Nazianzen. We're just going to call him Gregory, right? We're going to call him Gregory, and we're going to go through his orations. We're not going to go through. I just want to show you something. Make this a little bit bigger. So maybe, I don't know if y'all can see this, but this is the main part right here. And this is a part of the reading that we actually we talked about in class. And right after we said this is when I started recording, and I'm going to show you this in a minute, but we're talking about this in class. And it says that not everyone, my friends, does it belong to philosophize about God. Not to everyone. The subject is not so cheap and low, and I will add, not before every audience, nor at all times, nor on all points, but on certain occasions and before certain persons and within certain limits. You can't talk about this stuff with everybody. There's different levels to this, and it's no big deal, right? It's no big deal. People are just in different places. And I said that not too long ago. I was like, I used to have a short temper with the people that thought they were there, but they're really not. It's not their fault, right? I have to know better than to really go and try to take it to that level with people who aren't there yet. It's not fair and it's not responsible. And I don't think God would take pleasure in it. But again, I was trying to say to this community that, instead of trying to make it complicated, when maybe not everybody is there, let's take it back to the simple gospel message, right? Jesus died for our sins, and if you believe that, you will be saved. Let's just keep it simple and let's get people saved. And for those who want to complicate it, who are ready for it, they can deal with it. Like, I like dealing with that stuff, you know what I mean? But I'm there. If you're not there, it's okay. Let's keep it simple. And I would get pushback like, well, I know it says that you only have to believe in Jesus and that he died for your sins, but who is that Jesus? What about his divinity? What about how he was born? What about this? What about that? And I'm like, you're trying to complicate it again. Just keep it simple. Jesus died for your sins. If you believe that, you will be saved, right? And again, it was going back and forth. I was like, I'm not going to argue anymore. It just is what it is. So then we have seminar on Thursday. And again, this is how I know God is still speaking to me and he's comforting me in my time of need. And it's so awesome that I'm able to experience this and I can hear him and I'm aware of it. This is a little something that my professor said as part of the whole lecture. And I showed it to him. I showed some of my friends to let him know, like, look, I told you, this is what God does for me. And it's awesome. So thinking on that simplicity of the message versus complicating it, I want to share this with you real quick. It's only 40 seconds.
What is the basic Christian confession? Jesus is Lord. 1 Corinthians 12:3, Romans 10:9 and 10. You must confess that Jesus is Lord. Nobody can confess Jesus is Lord apart from the Holy Spirit. You must confess Jesus is Lord if you're going to be saved. What does Jesus is Lord mean? Jesus, this man, is the covenant God himself. And it is a simple statement. This man is the Lord. There's no qualification here. And every time somebody introduces a qualification, it results in heresy and error.
Now, does that not sound almost verbatim what I was just talking about? To me, it did. So when I heard it, I had to send it to my friends because I was like, it's so amazing how God speaks to me in this way. We were just talking about this. I was feeling bad about this in some completely unrelated seminar that my professor knew absolutely nothing about, speaks on this exact issue. It is a simple message. You don't have to complicate it. In fact, when you do try to complicate it, it often results in heresy because you do too much. And we were talking about the eternal subordination of the Father to the Son and how that leads to Arian leanings and things like that. And that's why it was brought up. But I just thought it was amazing. And again, I'm just so grateful that God still speaks to me. And I'm aware enough to know when it is he's doing it. So yeah, I kind of wanted to share that. There's not a whole lot more with class that needs to be shared. Like I said, it wasn't too eventful when it comes to seminars, but it was in life with all other aspects. Like I said, I'm now doing this thing with the youth. I'm doing this part of this Christian education. I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. And while I may feel some discomfort in certain areas of my life, I know that God is still holding me in his hands because I hear these messages from time to time when I need to hear them. And it confirms to me that I am doing the right thing regardless of what's going on around me. So to stand firm, preach the gospel, keep doing what I'm doing. And to me, it says that God is confirming me. So there's not a whole lot more to share. What am I going to read? I guess let me just share this. I haven't looked at what I'm going to be reading for the Trinity seminar. I don't know. I got to go look at that after this. But this is what I'm reading for the Luther seminar, the Empire's Reformation. I had to buy this on Google Books. It was like the cheapest one. Kindle, it was like $10 more, and I'm a little short on change right now. But what's hard about this is I can't play it on my app that'll play it at like 2.7 speed. It actually reads it a lot slower than I would read it. So I'm just going to have to, just suck it up and physically read it myself, old school style. But the totality is 206 pages. So it shouldn't take too long. I should be able to knock that out today. And like I said, afterwards, I'll go through and do my readings for the Trinity seminar. He did say, I asked him a question about those book reports and when they were due or what. And he says, you can pick whatever books you want, just and get those critical reviews to me. And 3 of them are due by the end of September. So I think that's going to be my next big thing to do is just to, I've already read 2 books. I shared one about the Trinity and the canon and the Old Testament, all that stuff. I'll probably do a critical review on that. And I think I want to do a critical review on Gregory, if not Augustine, which is also another one we had to read. And then I'll just pick one more and get that critical review in and get those assignments done. But yeah, other than that, don't have a whole lot going on in seminar, but there is a lot going on with church. One cool thing, pastor asked me if I would preach. I think it's first Sunday in October. So I'm going to do that. He already gave me, he's going through a theme. He's going to be going through Matthew, I believe. So he gave me a specific pericope or section of verses that he wants me to preach through. So I got to start getting that together as well. Start putting another lesson together for the youth on Wednesday. And we have to, when it comes to work, we have a renewal for ABHE. I'm the registrar, so this is like one of my big projects for the year. So I got to get started on that as well. So while there's nothing too entertaining going on, there is a lot of things going on. But I'm happy. You know what I mean? This is what I'm called to do, and I find a lot of pleasure in my purpose. And I wish that. And I pray that for everybody. I pray that you can find your purpose in life and that you get a lot of pleasure out of it. And you really need it because what was it? It was 11:30 last Sunday. 11:30 at night last Sunday, 12:30 at night last Sunday. And I'm reading through that Martin Luther book, filling up another cup of coffee, tired already, thinking to myself, I love this. I love this. I love this. Sometimes you got to tell yourself that because sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard. Man, I wish I had enough time to go through my Bible study. I also led Bible study. I'm not gonna have enough time to go through this. I don't want to make these super long. I had a Bible study. I led Bible study last Sunday because all the teachers were out for various reasons, and it was packed. Amanda was feeling sick, so she wasn't able to go. And I'm not gonna say it's a good thing that she didn't go, but there would have been nowhere for her to sit if she did go. It was like my Bible study was that packed, and we had a lot of new people in there, and I thought it was awesome because I was teaching from the 42nd Psalm, I want to say. And as I'm doing this, again, this is another way God just speaks to me. I'm doing a simple study through the Psalms. I'm actually using the I don't know if I have it anymore. I'm actually using the Sunday school material that they provide, which is very, very basic. You know what I mean? That's why I'm doing all this, because it's too basic. And I'm like, I'm just going to get this done. No big deal. No big deal. As I'm reading through the 42nd Psalm, which is also attached to the 43rd Psalm, you start to see these things just to illuminate. Well, at least I did. I think only I did. I think I even told the class, you're not going to find it in your Sunday school material. You probably won't even find it in any commentary, but it's because of the way we do biblical exegesis. Now, again, this is coming from what I'm learning in my PhD. We now use the historical critical method when looking back and exegeting the text, which robs the text of a lot of important things you can only see through allegorical interpretations. And I saw something that was amazing. I was able to see the Father, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit within the 42nd and 43rd Psalm. I went into the Hebrew. That's a big clue for you guys if you want to go check. And the way it repeated it 3 times was an allusion to the Trinity. It was a beautiful thing. And I'm so excited and passionate about teaching, so that while I'm up there teaching this on Sunday, I'm not literally jumping up and down, but I'm very excited. I love teaching the Bible, and I love teaching when something new is revealed. I've been doing this for 6 years straight now. So whenever I get to learn something new, oh my gosh, I get so excited. The class was excited because I was excited, and everybody was just excited. So the Holy Spirit was moving that day. And again, that's another thing I thank God for. I love what I'm doing right now. I love my place in life, and I just love the calling that God has placed on my life and everything that's going on. And I hope that I'm portraying this through this vlog, because it's really, really how I feel. And but other than that, yeah, I think this is getting kind of long. I'm going to go ahead and end it there. I'm going to, get started on this reading and have everything done in a couple of days. Other than that, I will see y'all next Friday. All right, y'all. Shalom.